Salem Township where I reside, and we have the privilege of having Congressman Walberg represent that district as well. And so we've had the chance to interface with Tim on numerous occasions, not only here in Grass Lake, but also in Salem Township. So it's a great honor for me to welcome him to Grass Lake and take your questions and hear an update on what's happening in Washington, D.C. So with that, Congressman, welcome to Grass Lake.
Good to be here. It was good to be with you. 2006. That's when I was first running for Congress. That goes way back. Goes way back. And Salem Township is always good to see you there as well. That's the northern part of my district. It goes almost all the way to Plymouth. And that's how I can say that my good friend and colleague Debbie Bingo, that I hug you on 3 sides. And but she always reminds me that I can also punch you in the gut if you go the wrong way. So we enjoy that relationship. It's good to be here. And this is a unsung place relative to their 4th of July parade. Many of you have ever been to the 4th of July parade. Some of you aren't from Grass Lake. Don't miss it. It's a pretty special parade. I was in it last 4th of July. I guess that's why it's 4th of July parade, right? And my gracious, it just wound its way through the community, and almost not the feeling of walking down Main Street, but rather walking through the town itself, the residential sections, meeting people where they live. Pretty cool experience. Well, I want to welcome you all here this morning. This is the 3rd town hall. Do I have one more? Yeah, I do. One more this week. So this is the 2nd. I have 3 town hall experiences this week around my district, and that's the reason why we like to get back to the district. Not only do we have a chance to go and visit businesses, manufacturing sites, schools, colleges, and universities in my district, and hear what's actually happening, and hear some really, really good ideas that some are bringing forward and will have an impact not only in this district, but could possibly have an impact, most recently the one in higher education, could have an impact for student debt, tuition reductions, and a better, more accessible quality of education as well. So we're excited to be able to see those things happening and hear those things, and then get them to the right people in Washington as necessary, and to see if we can have an involvement in the proper way, not the heavy-handed way that often happens with federal government getting involved, but in a proper way of enabling and moving things forward. I guess the most recent occurrences that have gone on in Washington revolve around basically 6 different things. It has been a relatively slow start to what's going on in Washington. That's a concern. When you read a report yesterday that came out of a CNN poll that established the fact that people generally feel right now very positive about the economic climate of this country. 71% responded either saying they felt good or very good about the economic growth and opportunity in our country. And you might expect that. Some of my colleagues don't seem to expect that, but you might expect it since we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in 50 years, 3.8%. Sadly, on the other side of the ledger, we have almost 7 million jobs that are out there looking for someone to fill the job. And that's because either they're not prepared, trained, ready for the workplace, or sadly, they've become accustomed to having someone else take care of them. I'm not talking about the ones that are disabled, elderly. I'm talking about real capable people. That, frankly, I think is a moral problem in our country, that we facilitated a thought over generations now, and now has become a sense of of being accustomed to the fact that I can get assistance for my life at such and such a level, not beyond it, but at such and such a level from the government. And while we need a safety net, we certainly need to encourage people to experience all that a lot of the immigrants that are trying to get here are coming forward. They see it as a land of opportunity. And I think that's something we got to foster. But 71% of people right now say this is a pretty good place to live economically. Yesterday I was in a number of, this week a number of businesses. Yesterday I ended up at a place that I enjoy being at. There's a motorcycle, four-wheeler, wave runner, snowmobile dealership up in the Delta Township area. And being a rabid motorcyclist myself for many, many years, I enjoy going there and smelling the paint and the rubber of those machines. But I asked the proprietor, how's it going for you? And there had been a downturn. I know as a Harley rider, Harley Davidson has been wrestling with how to encourage a younger segment to get in the market. My answer is make your motorcycle cheaper. One thing. So they're hearing some of that, and they're going to the lower size motorcycles and trying to get a new market in, electric motorcycle. I'm not going to buy one of those till they put a chip in it makes it sound like a Harley. But he said, you know, it's really picked up. He says it's almost like people have finally felt that we can trust that the economy is indeed moving forward. And we can spend a little bit on those things that may be considered luxuries. I consider it a necessity, but some would consider it luxury. And so it's good to hear those things that are taking place. But in Washington, for the last 2.5 months, with the legislation we've passed, which has been very, very few pieces, last week we took 3 votes. And it was primarily on one issue, and that was the overriding of the president's emergency order. That was the issue. An issue that was going nowhere, successfully. Just like issues we've dealt with dealing with the Second Amendment freedoms, undermining those. Wasn't going to go anywhere in the Senate, and certainly the president wouldn't sign it when it came through. And so the 6 points that we've dealt with, or 6 successes, as Nancy Pelosi would say, embrace socialism, enabled anti-Semitism, abided by infanticide, violated the First Amendment. That was interesting. That was their election reform legislation. Why do I say that it violated the First Amendment? The ACLU said that. It's always interesting when Tim Walberg and the ACLU come out and say they're in opposition to this legislation.
Sir, the ACL didn't completely disagree on the whole act.
ACLU stands opposed to that because it violated the First Amendment.
Just one part of it.
Well, that's the bill, and that's why they opposed it. They continue to oppose the bill based upon its violation of the First Amendment. So there were plenty of things wrong in that bill, and there were plenty others that felt it was a bad.
But there were plenty of right things, very right things.
Well, we can talk about. I hope you've written that down in your questions.
No, I
We can talk further about that. But again, there are times when the ACLU and Kim Walberg stand together for a piece of legislation, and I certainly agree with them on the violation of the First Amendment. Infringed on the Second Amendment. We passed 2 bills in the House. Both of them allegedly protecting people against some of the massacres that are taking place in our schools, our churches, our theaters. And in fact, not a single thing in either of those pieces of legislation would have done that. You go back to the last 10 events in our country over the past several years, not one of those bills, those 2 bills, would have stopped any of those shooters from doing what they did. And then finally, defending illegal immigration. Yesterday in a town hall, an individual pointed out accurately about what a large number of the immigrants or attempted immigrants that are migrating to the United States want to experience in the U.S. And the fact that many that are here now, legally and illegally, add to what goes on in America. At our job sites, our dairy milking parlors, at our hospitality centers, etc. I had to disagree with her only on one thing. As I said, I agree with you on every point you've made about those people that are quietly here, working at various places and providing some service that is necessary for some of those industries, because sadly, we can't get some of our own people to fill those jobs. But I said, they aren't here legally, as you said. So they've committed a crime in coming. And this is a nation of laws. And that's why we have a nation that offers opportunity and freedom. And if the first thing they experience when they come to this country is the ability to commit a crime and not suffer the consequences for it, then they've lost immediately what America's all about. Because it's illegal across the borders without coming legally. And while we need to fix some of those bureaucratic red tape hurdles that get in the way of good people that have the right motivations and also the right characteristics, in the sense that we want to come here to experience the American way, we want to contribute, we want to abide by the laws, we want to be Americans. We need to make sure that those people have the opportunity to come, but legally. And so when we passed legislation last week that says to the President, you can't do what you need to do as a Commander-in-Chief, the oath of office that you've taken, because of political reasons, then we're wrong. For a second reason, Congress was wrong in not getting it done before the President had to do it. The Senate was wrong in not taking up the legislation we passed twice in the House last year to fully fund the border security that's necessary, including the wall, and to do some significant reform in our immigration procedures as well. We sent that to the Senate. It was blocked by Chuck Schumer with a cloture vote requirement that required 60 votes. And as you know, the Republicans didn't have 60 then, don't have 60 now. I'm hoping that someday they come to their senses in the Senate and do away with that cloture rule. And you take bills up and you debate them and vote on them like you ought to. But anyway, the President didn't get that done. He asked for it. He gave extended time for Congress to get it done. But when you have a leader in the House of Representatives that says, we're not negotiating for $1 for a wall, that's pretty hard to negotiate with. And so I supported the President in doing what he legally has the responsibility to do. And the law says it because Congress passed it, giving him the right, any president, not just Trump. The presidents have used that same law in the past. President Trump has the same right to use it. It's not a constitutional violation at all, because the law also says that we can go and try to override, which we attempted to do. He vetoed it, and in the end, there's not the votes to override his veto. So he can move forward, and I hope the courts understand that, ultimately look at it and say the law was given by Congress for him to do it. It was given with enough flexibility that he could determine, based upon consultation with Homeland Security, in this case, and Customs and Border, and our military, to realize that it's not proper for our country or safe for our country to have now, on average, 60,000 people crossing the border illegally, the southern border, 60,000 every month. That's the average now. That's like starting a new Jackson or Monroe, Michigan, thinking of my district. At least every month, without control. If that's not an invasion type setting, I don't know what it is. So I applaud the President for showing the strength and authority that he's given in doing it. I just wish that Congress would have done it. I think that's enough of an introduction of what's going on, and I know you have questions. And today, with this size group, I think we're going to simply maybe you can, the ones you have maybe read, and then we'll let the person you're reading for, if they want to add something to it briefly, we'll let them do it. Make it a little more personal that way.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Congressman. Ben from Grass Lake poses the following question. When is Congress going to put an end to the Mueller witch hunt? I'm tired of this needless investigation. When are the Republicans going to turn the tables on the Democrats and start investigating the Clintons and Obama's Department of Justice and FBI abuses?
Well, let me just state the matter of fact. Congress doesn't have the ability to stop the Mueller investigation. And the President has said very clearly that he's not going to step in and stop it. And I think he believes ultimately that when the Mueller report does come out, there's going to be no Russian collusion at all. And it will be shown to be a fishing expedition where he found some people committing crimes, like Cohen and others. But the relationship with the President was just a relationship with the President, and not something illegal the President was involved with, or a collusion in nature. So in a sense, sadly, it's cost millions of dollars to the taxpayer to end up with a fishing project that was really instigated by the Democrats to try to undermine right from the get-go this President and the success that he's had in spite of it. In spite of the success that he's had in policy. We can get all waylaid in personality, but in policy, this country's moving forward, and I'm thankful for it. We have an Attorney General now, Attorney General Barr, that I believe will do what Attorney General Sessions didn't do. Number one, I don't believe the Attorney General should have recused himself from anything. Once he said to the President, I'm willing to accept your nomination, your appointment. He should have been up front, told the President, no, I'm going to recuse myself for whatever reason. That really took any type of control over the Justice Department, over Mueller, who's under that control, and allowed this to go on without any real oversight over it. I think Barr has come in understanding that it is what it is relative to the Mueller investigation, but there are also some potential illegalities that came from Hillary Clinton's campaign, herself, and many operatives in the last administration that they ought to be looking at. So I don't think it's over with yet. A lot of research has been done already by committees, Trey Gowdy and others, and there's a lot of stuff that's there ready. And I think Devin Nunes yesterday coming out with a lawsuit against some of the news sources for their efforts to push back, to change the narrative, is the first sign of what may be taking place, even when we are in the minority in the House now. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens. But in spite of all of that, the nation, its economy, its strength and security is moving forward.
Congressman James from Grass Lake wants to know what your stance on red flag gun confiscation laws is. Do you feel these proposed laws are a gross violation of due process? And how would you address the issue of anti-American ideology that is currently being championed by loud voices with the majority of the American media?
Yeah. Red flag, that's when...
That was my question, sir.
Okay, if you want to add anything to it?
Well, I serve my country, I'm a patriot, and myself, I'm not willing to see anyone lose any more liberty in the name of safety. Since 9/11, our liberty has been chipped away through the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, among many. And I'm concerned because these laws would lead to a very slippery slope, where we could potentially see ourselves being punished for the things we say, for things we do, without any due process. As a gun owner and as someone who lives in a small town, under these proposed laws, if someone around here, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the drama that happens in small towns, but if someone around here were to become angry with me or my family, all they'd have to do is pick up a phone and call a police officer and tell them I did something dangerous or said something dangerous. And then all of a sudden I've got a no-knock raid commencing on my home, where my family lives. If someone kicks in my door without my knowledge of my home, what do you think my solution is going to be as a United States Marine Corps combat veteran? I see a gross violation of due process, and I see people being killed without due process being offered to them, because it already has happened. It happened on the East Coast. And I'd like to make a point for anyone in here. This isn't about my individual guns. I don't see guns as, well, you know, I'm not, I guess you could call me a gun nut, but I'm not. I see my guns as an avenue of freedom in this nation. And when we come out and we champion pro-Second Amendment legislation, pro-Second Amendment ideals, it's not because we love our guns, because we're gun nuts and we're crazies. It's because we see our guns for what they are, an insurance policy on the freedom we have in this nation. And with these laws, we feel very violated by the federal government, and we see our liberty being stripped away.
Well, fortunately, the red flag laws have not been passed yet,
Yes, I understand.
and I don't think they will be passed. If it was simply a red flag law like we have common nomenclature in our society today, see something, say something, that's one thing. But when you put a law in place that makes it imperative that if you don't say something, you could be held liable for that automatically, because it's the law, red flag law. That's the problem. I think all of us are willing to accept the fact that if we see something untoward happening or something developing, we can say something, but that's not necessarily then to automatically say that that person is criminal, or that person is going to perpetrate something, or that person is a danger to society. They may end up being that, but that's far different than having a red flag law that says you better do it, because we're telling you to do it. And so I concur with that totally.
And what solution would you propose in lieu of red flag laws? Because I, like anyone else, don't want to see these things happen.
Well,
I'm tired of being blamed as a gun owner in America for these things.
Well, I think you hit it on it first there. We don't need a law like that. We need to enforce the laws we already have in place. But just because you're a military veteran, and you may have been treated for PTSD, and I'm not saying you have, but you may have been treated for PTSD, that should not take away your Second Amendment.
And that right there is causing a lot of.
And that's a concern, because now doctors have been told under the last administration through Affordable Care Act, you ought to be asking questions to people about whether they're gun owners. And if there's any question about their mental state, or more importantly, if they go and seek counseling for something, their marriage has had a problem and we want to have counseling, that could be used as a red flag. We don't want that. Again, there is a creative tension that says that if we don't put these laws down, I think it's a misguided thought, but put these laws down, then somebody that has a PTSD problem in the past or has sought mental care for depression, they shouldn't have a gun. We've got to take it away from them, because undoubtedly there's a chance that they'll use it, so let's take away the chance. That's not a free society. And statistically, that doesn't happen. Challenges, though, when you have students like we saw in Parkland or others who had past history of bad behavior, mental health behavior, and we knew that they had guns, and we knew that they made threats, and that wasn't undertaken to care against that. That's a problem. So, no, I don't support it so far. There isn't support in either the House or the Senate to pass red flag legislation, and the President certainly won't sign it. Again, we're a free society. We saw what happened in New Zealand. Tragic loss of life. But even with the laws that they have there, and police officers generally not carrying weapons, but having special SWAT teams that are brought in, I don't think to say a society like that is any safer. I think we get back to the good old common sense rules of the road of living and become components of that in society and teach our kids the values that are traditional in this country, and then back up our laws with using them when people abuse it. We've got a better shot at it.
Congressman Hector from Grass Lake is thinking that we need to help all the volunteer military and feels that perhaps we should have the draft back.
I would like to let Finance Secretary Garcia. I think that any veteran that's been a convict, moving in a convict, will tell you that one of those tours is plenty training. But with a volunteer, I would keep sending people back to these wars all the time after time. And there's way too much stress on people, on their families. And it's putting the responsibility of protecting this nation on the backs of very small number of volunteers who don't have congregation. So I think that the draft should come back because then we all share the responsibility like a lot of us previously had. And I think that we changed a lot of the attitudes in this country about the criticism of our nation, of our government, our laws. There's a number of things. Because now people are more involved in protecting those rights rather than just having the ability to sit back and criticize it and leave the job of protecting us to somebody else.
Yeah. In all honesty, I wouldn't disagree with you. The practical matter, though, is that there is no push, no move, no direction coming from the military establishment, not just Pentagon, but even commanders in the field, asking for a draft. And at this point in time, any polling I've seen doesn't indicate the American public is supportive of that. And right now, at least we're being told that the recruits that we're receiving are solid, are adequate for the situation at hand. But having discussed this with, for instance, the Israeli Defense Force, IDF people, and the fact that every individual, including women, are given a mandatory service performance immediately out of high school. Men 3 years and women 2 years. And the type of impact that's has outside of the military in the manufacturing, inventive community, entrepreneurial setting, of having young people matured through that experience, automatic that comes to them in the IDF, they come back and then they go to college. And the type of creativity, entrepreneurship is enhanced as well. So not only would it be, I think, something of value for getting skin in the game for all our people, to know that this is a country that we stand for, but it would also, I think, mature people, and we wouldn't see the report yesterday of the greatest stress factors in the millennials as they evidence themselves as all